Yeah.
At 9 years old, like a kid can pick up a language in like a year if they're
Sure.
immersed.
Unlike an adult like myself that I still can't do it.
Well, I think like if you went to Mexico and lived in the town where no English was spoken for 2 years, you'd probably pick it up.
Either that or starve.
Yeah, pretty much. So, a kid who's going to school, I picked it up in like a year. We became kind of like my dad's crutch to where like, well, speak to my daughter or
Oh,
speak to
okay.
my. So I became like his translation voice, which I think happens to a lot of first generation,
Absolutely.
kids.
Yeah.
They kind of become that like person that translates from one person to their to the third parent. So I became that person, which, that's why I think I became like more focused in front of the house and here at the restaurant, service oriented. And, I just learned the business through learning. I was like 14 years old taking like a catering order from from the LA Times, and I thought I was like really funny.
Wow. So you almost immediately you came here and you basically started working with your dad
Yeah,
in the restaurant.
from day one.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Were you enamored being in Oaxaca going, okay, I'm moving to LA? Were you enamored
Oh,
with the notion of going to
100%. Are you kidding me? I would watch Full House.
LA?
I would watch Saved by the Bell. I was in love with Zach Morris
Uh-huh.
since I was young. Like my sister and I used to play pretend that we were sisters, which was weird, and that we spoke English and we lived in LA.
Right. Okay.
Even before like my dad moved. Like
Yeah.
when we were like, I was 4, she was 7, or we were 5, she was 8, and we would like pretend that we spoke Spanish, that we spoke English, and that we were like these sisters that lived in LA, and that like our best friend was Zach Morris, which is funny because I actually went to high school, and the high school that like they filmed the Say by the Bell movie,
Uh-huh.
that was my high school in Palisades.
Well, then you were living it.
So it's so funny how like when you play pretend as a child, you could just be manifesting your future,
Yeah.
which is a conversation I had with my girlfriend too about the same thing. And like, that's so crazy. Like you never know kind of like when you're playing pretend, like really you're just manifesting into the world.
I'm
what
a
you wanna
big
be.
believer in manifesting, what
Yeah.
you want to become and who you
Mhm.
want to be and the success that you want to have.
Mhm.
So absolutely. So okay, so you're here working for your dad, you're 14, life is great cuz you live in LA and you go to the school where they film the show. So
And I had a lot of money on my pocket, not because we were rich, but because I was a waitress.
Oh, okay.
And I used to get a lot of tips. So
Yeah,
I used to
nice.
have cash.
So what'd you do with the cash?
I saved it. I saved a lot. I saved a lot of money. I used to save more before than I save now, actually.
Yeah, just like my wife. She was a saver. Her dad promised me she would turn a penny into $1. I haven't seen that yet.
Well,
but
that's how they trap you. That's how we trap them. Ask my husband the same thing. He's like, "What happened? Were you a saver?" We're like, "Yeah, when it was my money, but now it's yours."
Yeah. So at what point did you get really involved? It sounded like you were involved at the restaurant big time when you first got here, but
Yeah.
was there ever a transition for you where you became more involved?
When I became more involved, well, I think it was when my dad was, completely just serial entrepreneur. Is that like what you call it?
Serial entrepreneur,
He
sure.
had like 4 different businesses, and really just went over his head, just crazy stuff. And unfortunately, just after like the economic turndown of what is that, '07?
Yeah.
He lost a lot of money in one of the businesses he had. And he was like, you know what, like that's it. It's done. I'm moving to Mexico. I'm done with the world. I'm closing down everything, selling everything, and moving. And he started selling off his business little by little until like all that was left was this restaurant. And
Right.
through the process, I didn't really register with me. I always thought there was like a secret stash of cash somewhere that he was just like kidding, like joke on you guys, right?
Yeah.
But no, like it really was that he lost a lot. So it just kind of became like a thing where I was like, I really have to say yes to this opportunity and like really step up in a bigger way. I think that before I was just kind of in a job day to day until like I was faced with that sort of moment in my life where it was like, well, either you have to go and maybe find a job somewhere. And there's certain people that love doing that have like love the stability and really find comfort, and like that's where they thrive. That's not me.
Yeah.
I get freaked out when I have to, like the idea of having to be somewhere every single day at a certain time freaks me out, which is why I think I didn't like school.
Yeah, it's tough. So just for some perspective, your dad had all these businesses, the restaurant being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
You see from the distance he starts closing them down, but you felt the stability with the restaurant, but all of a sudden you realize, wait, that might be in jeopardy too because he's going to Mexico.
Right.
What age range were you, and where were you at in your life? Were you a mom yet? Were you
No, no.
were you still a teenager?
No, no, no. When that happened, I was in my 20s, in my mid 20s, and I was not a mom. I was hanging out with my girlfriends, living in my loft,
Mm-hmm.
and going to restaurant openings every
Yeah.
weekend and every opportunity I had. I had drinks named after me at bars. Like
Really?
that's how much I would be like in the scene.
Like what types of drinks?
Mezcal drinks. That was kind of like when the mezcal like craze started in LA when
Mm-hmm.
it was just starting. It was very like, it was just sort of like being introduced, and I loved being part of that sort of like beginning sort of, like that mezcal like kind of club that we used to have
Yeah.
with like really amazing LA bartenders and other restaurant owners that really appreciated the craft, and it was a great time where I got to meet so many people who were in the industry that really inspired me to step up to when my dad was telling me that this was going to be over, when I saw kind of like how they turned their passion into like their life, and
Yeah.
even chefs, restaurant owners, like bartenders, mixologists. It was like very inspiring, and I was like, like I have that. Like, why can't I make that my life? And that's sort of when I found a new sense of purpose in
So
the business.
So you mentioned that time of your life you were bouncing around in new restaurant
Mm-hmm.
openings and bar openings and stuff like that. It almost seems like you had some type of passion for that came out of the restaurant maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
um, was it because of the drinks and the social side, or were you really interested in what was new and coming up? Because a lot of people just don't go to new restaurant openings. They just go to the bar,
Right.
But it sounds like you had kind of a specific thing that you were after.
What I really love, and I've had a conversation with I have like this quote unquote life coach. I He's like, well, I we talked about like what is really like what I love, because I have the restaurant, I have my podcast Super Amas, I have like my Super Amas, sort of like community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love I love community. I love hosting people. I love bringing people together. I love the connection between families, the connection between people. I love creating friendships. That's what I really love. Now that manifests its way in different ways.
Yeah, sure.
The restaurant being one of them. That's one part that like where I can really manifest and really nurture that passion. I love seeing parents eating here with their children. I love meeting with my team and like building my team. I love making them better. I that's the it just happened to manifest its way into a restaurant.
Yeah.
Some people really like are passionate about like food and all things food, and like it could manifest its way in different ways. It does not necessarily open a restaurant. It could be something else.
So do you think that that's what your motivator was to be successful here, is that you want to see people happy and you want to be around people?
Yeah.
Do you think that's what made you better creating your menus and the food that you have here?
Yeah, because I think at the end it's like, okay, well, what is it that people are gonna enjoy? And then I focus on like, I imagine them, how are they gonna eat it? How are they gonna share it? How are they gonna talk about it? And like that's my drive.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
also that's why, Super MS has grown the way it is, because I'm connecting moms with one another. I'm putting them together. I'm bringing together, have an event happening on May 12th where we're putting 1,000 moms in one location and creating a beautiful experience for them so they can connect and they can become friends and just grow their community and grow their tribe, right? Like we're tribal people, and like when you start seeing how people who have like minds come together, how that can create an explosion of like creativity and creation and done things. I think that's what it is. So like I think that's what I love, and it just manifests this way in different ways.
It's almost like you reverse engineered a business plan for a restaurant. Your end vision was seeing happy people at the tables,
Right.
Socializing in a community, and you figured out how to make that happen through serving incredible food. The awards speaks for itself, and how busy you are every time I've been here speaks for itself, and the menu's incredible. We kind of skipped over a little bit. Your dad is leaving. He's going back to Mexico. You're working here, and you realize this was the real deal. So obviously there was a conversation that happened between your dad and yourself about, hey, I really am leaving.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was more like, it was in this office. He had actually a desk in here. I don't know how he even fit a desk in here. We rearranged things. And it just made me realize that, like, everything can be gone in a day, which is why I think also we always strive to continue to innovate and to become better and do things better every single day. Not just because I have a James Beard Award doesn't mean that, like, okay, great, now we're done. It's the opposite. It's like, oh my God, then how do we get another one, for example,
sure.
right? So it was more of that. It was more of like, this is where we are. I want you to realize this moment, remember this moment, that, like, look what we had and look what we have today. It could all be gone, and if you don't nurture it and if you don't pay attention to it. And that's really what I remember about that conversation, and that's what I took away from it. And it's like, okay, well then now let's move on and see what's next. I don't remember it being like, I mean, yes, my life was going to be over, and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I really definitely had those feelings, but I think, like, what I remember now is just like, things can go away very easily if you don't nurture them, take care of them.
So you had the conversation with your dad. Did you have to, rally your brothers and sisters and say, hey, we need to take over this restaurant?
Yeah, I think all of us knew what was happening. My brother had just left college, and he also had to, make a decision whether he was going to join the business or not. My older sister had just come back to work for us. She was, she had another job, and she had just come back. My youngest sister was still in college. She actually, I had to pull out of college and transfer into community college because my parents couldn't afford the college she was at anymore. So it was just like kind of like a reshuffling of priorities, and just really tested our tenacity and really tested our character and, like, our strength as a family, and ultimately brought us closer to build what it was today, to what it is today.
It's amazing because when I walk in here, just the paint on the walls and the art and the menus and the food and everything and the staff here, it really feels like you got it all figured out.
We don't. It's all a fraud.
Well, what's on the plate is really good. I do know that. So, you have established yourself here, and we've covered that. But this has led to so many different things for you.
Yeah, when you have a restaurant, it's just beautiful because it's almost like your second home, where you get to host people and meet people, and again, what I love to do. So it's just, you never know who you're going to meet through these doors. This is where I met my husband, like, this is where I've met, my gosh, people that have led me into other places in my life, even super mamas, like the partners that we have today, like, we've met because of the restaurant. Like, this place has nurtured so many relationships. It has become sort of like a hub for so many opportunities that have come, in my life, but also because I had to say yes to things. Like, had I not approached that person, had I not come that day, had I, things wouldn't have panned out the way they have. So it does take, obviously, myself to, like, say yes to things and opportunities and follow through. But definitely this place has been the hub for that.
I think that's a learning for other people, to realize that you're in a position, especially in the service industry, to not only impact people's lives in a positive way, like you said, you enjoy hosting people, but be receptive to what might come your way. I hired an employee years ago that was probably one of the best Starbucks employees at the unit I went to every day. And it's like, when I needed a body, I knew who I wanted.
Right.
And he had no idea he was being interviewed every day I walked in there and got my coffee, right?
Right.
And I think that if we're open to those opportunities, they're there.
Yep, they are.
So
people are always looking for talent.
Looking for talent, or something to do, or collaborate with somebody. and take what,
Always.
their dreams are to the next level. So tell me about a couple of the projects that have come out of being here, or the people that you've met from here. Because I know you have a lot of stuff on your plate. I see a variety of different items in this office that have nothing to do with the restaurant. So tell us about some of those and how those came about.
They're not, but